Really? Beginning the day, are we? Ridiculous this is! Haven't coffee drank, I haven't! Ah! Barely out of bed, I crawl! Disgusting behavior this is! Ow! Worst impression this is. Asking God for forgiveness I am. Oh! Whoever actually voiced Yoda probably turning in grave he is. Anyway, well, morning good it is to you. Even not seconded to stream this is. You asked for this, you did. Good thing ham for breakfast I had. Yes. Train you in the ways of the Force I should, but instead ridiculousness I will do instead. Anybody new and YouTube confused they're going to be. Hello YouTube, good morning. And unsubscribe. Oh goodness. Hi YouTube. I know things sound strange right now, and if you've showed up here before, you're probably really confused, and you've probably left already. It's not gonna be like this the whole time. I forgot to shut off a redeem on Twitch. That's all it is, okay? That's all it is. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll be back in a few seconds. Well, not seconds. In about 7 minutes. We're gonna talk for a minute. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. But welcome in, everybody. Oh, gosh, what a way to start. What a way to start the stream. What a way to start the stream. Anyway, it's totally fine. You gotta understand, YouTube, there are redeems. Okay, there are redeems on Twitch. I forgot to shut them off when I started things up, and of course, you can't trust these. You can't trust these kids. They in here and they think, oh, Rico's gonna read Prince Caspian. Let's just redeem all the things. Sabotage. That's what it is. Pure sabotage. I can't believe this. I'll call you in when it is time. See, this is fun. So what my kids like to do is that, when we're reading, they like to listen. You understand? So when they get in here, they want to argue over who sits in the holy beanbag chair. Do I have to buy another one? No, that'd be spoiling them. Anyway, let them fight. Let them fight. They can fight. We'll see who survives. We'll see who makes it. But anyway, it's alright. It's fine. But hey, anyway, it's good to have you guys in. Welcome in, everybody. Why am I here? I hope you enjoyed, but they're gone. You had your fun. You had your fun. Well, you're having your fun now. I've still got another 6 minutes of this. I know, not even a second into stream, and I was already sabotaged. But let's jump back to the top real quick. So first was claimed by Rebozo. Second was claimed by Baines. Third was claimed by Kayla, who's foraging beans right now. Fourth, Thunderbird Nix. The second, fourth, why am I here? And then we had also Midriff lurking. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you so much. I hope you guys had fun. We drowned Kayla before stream started. I saw that. I pitched in. I pitched in a little bit. You have to. You gotta make sure she's drinking. Okay? Coffee. Gotta do the high-pitched Yoda voice. Oh my gosh. I can't take you anywhere. Why am I here? I can't take you anywhere. But you know what? If it hadn't been you, it would have been Baines. So, it's fine. It's fine. That's what I get for forgetting. Hail Helium Marine. Hail Baines, my lord. It's so good to see you guys. Welcome in. We are going, so today, just so you guys are aware, we're going to start Prince Caspian. So if you guys haven't read this one, again, we are reading through the Narnia series, the Chronicles of Narnia saga, if you will. And today we are starting Prince Caspian. We finished A Horse and His Boy, or The Horse and His Boy, yesterday. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. It's one of my personal favorites of the series. And I really like that one. But that one's done. We finished it victorious. Victorious by all counts. And then this one is back to, I mean, we were kind of, the last two books, we kind of took a step away from the Pevensies, really. Because you have... We read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first, which that book is about the Pevensey children and how they became kings and queens of Narnia and traveled in and then returned home. You have The Magician's Nephew, which kind of tells us the story of how Narnia came to be and how the wardrobe came to be, and Diggory and Polly and what happened with them. And then you have The Horse and His Boy, which mostly follows a boy named Shasta, and a girl named Aravis, and they are living in Narnia. They're Narnians. Well, they live in the world Narnia is in. And they come across Peter, Edmund, Susan, and Lucy, but the Pevensies aren't really the main characters of the story. It's during their reign in Narnia. Now, Prince Caspian is long after their reign. But they are all in this book. The Pevensies are all in this book, which is, it's really good. You're gonna like this one. It's a fun adventure, as all of them are. And I hope you are prepared for the glory that is Prince Caspian. Have any of you ever read this one? And which one is y'all's favorite, actually? Because after this, we've got 3 more books. So, including this one, 4 total we're going to get through. We've read 3 so far. Which I hope you're all aptly prepared for battle, because it's going to be glorious. Huh? In a few minutes. In about 2 minutes. But, yeah. Crawled out of bed today because Battle Baby last night decided to wake up in the middle of the night and was just awake. He was just awake for a while. Took a little bit to lull him back to sleep. Just happily playing around, rolling around the bed, because, he's crawling now, so, I gotta be careful. I can't just, set him on the bed and expect him to just wiggle and to stay in one place. He will escape. This is why we can't have nice things. Exactly. Can't believe it. Disgusting behavior. But it's okay. It's alright, it's fine. Anyway. Let's see. I'm gonna get one more sip of coffee. Make sure y'all get a sip of coffee. Snuggle in, get set, get comfortable, have your breakfast, whatever you're gonna do. And, we'll get started here in about 1 minute. Yes. 1 minute indeed. Which is fine. Egg taco. Is that what you had for breakfast? Why am I here? That doesn't sound bad. Honestly, breakfast tacos are pretty legit. I know. I'm hyper.
Wait.
What?
That one's bigger than the other one.
Yeah, the cover, the picture I got was bigger than it. It's fine, don't worry about it.
Oh, Daddy, it has the same cover this time.
It does. I didn't. I never did. All lies. It's gonna be fine. Anyway, so, alright, we got 17 seconds left of this nightmare, and then you all be free. So, YouTube, again, I apologize. You may not know what's going on. Once again, I have redeems on this channel where people like to mess with my Vox, and they like to make me
What do I sound like?
And they like to make me, They like to alter things, and I forgot to shut them off before I started, so...
There we go. Alright, that's better.
What do I sound like?
You sound like normal now. I shut it off. It's too late. Now settle in, you two.
I like how you cough. Like you.
Well, you know, you gotta get rid of it. Anyway, we're probably losing people by the droves, but that's okay, it's fine. Our hundreds of viewers. Hundreds, thousands even. Anyway, okay, so welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. I hope you guys are prepared. So we're gonna start reading Prince Caspian. So I haven't read this one on stream yet. We've just started this book today, so if you haven't heard this before, nestle in, get your coffee. We're gonna get started here. Oh, this is such a good song, though. Let's see. We're gonna go to this song. It's a good song to start reading in. Sit there quietly and enjoy yourself. All right. So, Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. This is Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Daddy, we're almost through the series.
Thank you, yes. Have a seat, please.
There's 3 more books to go after this.
Yes. All right. Remember the rules, my lovely children, that if you talk, if you fight and you bicker, what happens? You get kicked out, right? And then you have to go watch it on the iPad, all right? You only have one chance. If you guys do anything, kaputski, all right? All right?
1 life left.
That's because I don't have any more patience. Anyway, it's okay.
1 life left.
I'm an almost 40-year-old man.
Screw up, we die.
Yep, see, and they're already messing up. They don't know. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. The Island, Chapter 1. Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. And it has been told in another book called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe how they had a remarkable adventure. They had opened the door of a magic wardrobe and found themselves in a quite different world from ours. And in that different world they had become kings and queens in a country called Narnia. While they were in Narnia, they seemed to reign for years and years, but when they came back through the door and found themselves in England again, it all seemed to have taken no time at all. At any rate, no one noticed that they had ever been away, and they were never told anyone except one very wise grown-up. That had all happened a year ago, and now all 4 of them were sitting on a seat at a railway station with trunks and playboxes piled up round them. They were, in fact, on their way back to school. They had traveled together as far as the station, which was a junction, and here in a few minutes one train would arrive and take the girls away to one school. In about half an hour another train would arrive and the boys would go off to another school. The first part of the journey, when they were all together, always seemed to be part of the holidays. But now when they would be saying goodbye and going different ways so soon, everyone felt that the holidays were really over, and everyone felt their term time feelings beginning again. And they were all rather gloomy, and no one could think of anything to say. Lucy was going to boarding school for the first time. It was an empty, sleepy country station, and there was hardly anyone on the platform except themselves. Suddenly, Lucy gave a sharp little cry, like someone who has been stung by a wasp. "What's up, Lou?" said Edmund, and then suddenly broke off and made a noise like, "Ow!" "What on earth?" began Peter, and then he too suddenly changed what he had been going to say. Instead he said, "Susan, let go! What are you doing? Where are you dragging me to?" "I'm not touching you," said Susan. "Someone's pulling me. Oh, stop it!" Everyone noticed that all their other faces had gone very white. "I just felt the same," said Edmund in a breathless voice, "as if I were being dragged along. A most frightful pulling. It's beginning again." "Oh, me too," said Lucy. "Oh, I can't bear it." "Look sharp," shouted Edmund. "All catch hands and keep together. This is magic, I can tell by the feeling. Quick!" "Yes," said Susan. "Hold hands. Oh, I do wish it would stop. Oh." Next moment, the luggage, the seat, the platform, and the station had completely vanished. The 4 children, holding hands and panting, found themselves standing in a woody place. Such a woody place that branches were sticking into them, and there was hardly room to move. They all rubbed their eyes and took a deep breath. "Oh, Peter," exclaimed Lucy, "do you think we could possibly have got back to Narnia?" "It might be anywhere," said Peter. "I can't see a yard in all these trees. Let's try to get into the open, if there is any open." With some difficulty, and with some stings from nettles and pricks from thorns, they struggled out of the thicket. Then they had another surprise. Everything became much brighter, and after a few steps they found themselves at the edge of the wood, looking down on a sandy beach. A few yards away, a very calm sea was falling on the sand, with such tiny ripples that it made hardly any sound. There was no land in sight, and no clouds in the sky. The sun was about where it ought to be at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the sea was a dazzling blue. They stood sniffing in the sea smell. "By Jove," said Peter, "this is good enough." 5 minutes later, everyone was barefooted and wading in the cool, clear water. "This is better than anything, or this is better than being in a stuffy train on the way back to Latin and French and algebra," said Edmund. And then for quite a long time there was no more talking, only splashing and looking for shrimps and crabs. "All the same," said Susan presently, "I suppose we'll have to make some plans. We shall want something to eat before long." "Oh, well, we've got the sandwiches Mother gave us for the journey," said Edmund. "At least, I've got mine." "Not me," said Lucy. "Mine were in my little bag." "Oh, so were mine," said Lucy. "Mine are in my coat pocket. They're on the beach," said Peter. "That'll be 2 lunches among 4. This is going to be such fun." "At present," said Lucy, "I want something to drink more than something to eat." Everyone else now felt thirsty, as one usually does after wading in salt water under a hot sun. "Oh, it's like being shipwrecked," remarked Edmund. "In the books, they always find springs of clear, fresh water on the island. We better go and have a look for them." "Does that mean we have to go back into all that thick wood?" said Susan. Not a bit of it," said Peter. "If there are streams, there's bound to come to the sea, and if we walk along the beach, we're bound to come to them." They all now waded back and went first across the smooth, wet sand and then up to the dry, crumbly sand that sticks to one's toes, and began putting on their shoes and socks. Edmund and Lucy wanted to leave them behind and do their exploring with bare feet, but Susan said this would be a mad thing to do. "We might never find them again," she pointed out, "and we shall want them if we're still here when night comes and it begins to be cold." When they were dressed again, they set out along the shore with the sea on their left hand and the wood on the right. Except for an occasional seagull, it was a very quiet place. The wood was so thick and tangled that they could hardly see into it at all, and nothing in it moved, not a bird, not even an insect. Shells and seaweed and anemones or tiny crabs and rock pools are all very well, but you soon get tired of them if you are thirsty. The children's feet, after the change from the cool water, felt hot and heavy. Susan and Lucy had raincoats to carry. Edmund had put down his coat on the station seat just before the magic overtook them, and he and Peter took it in turns to carry Peter's greatcoat. Presently, the shore began to curve round to the right, about 1/4 of an hour later, after they had crossed a rocky ridge which ran out into a point. It made quite a sharp turn. Their backs were now to the part of the sea which had met them when they first came out of the wood, and now, looking ahead, they could see across the water another shore, thickly wooded like the one they were exploring. "I wonder, is that an island, or do we join on it presently?" said Lucy. "I don't know," said Peter, and they all plodded on in silence. The shore that they were walking on drew nearer and nearer to the opposite shore, and as they came round each promontory, the children expected to find the place where the two joined. But in this they were disappointed. They came to some rocks which they had to climb, and from the top they could see a fair way ahead, and, "Oh, bother," said Edmund, "it's no good. We shan't be able to get to those other woods at all. We're on an island." It was true. At this point, the channel between them and the opposite coast was only about 30 or 40 yards wide, but they could now see that this was its narrowest pass. After that, their own coast bent round to the right again, and they could see open sea between it and the mainland. It was obvious that they had already come much more than halfway around the island. "Oh, look," said Lucy suddenly. "What's that?" She pointed to a long, silvery, snake-like thing that lay across the beach. "Oh, a stream! A stream!" shouted the others, and tired as they were, they lost no time in clattering down the rocks and racing to the fresh water. They knew that the stream would be better to drink farther up, away from the beach, so they went at once to the spot where it came out of the wood. The trees were as thick as ever, but the stream had made itself a deep course between high, mossy banks, so that by stooping you could follow it up in a sort of tunnel of leaves. They dropped on their knees by the first brown, dimply pool and drank, and dipped their faces in the water, and then dipped their arms in up to the elbow. "Oh, now," said Edmund, "what about those sandwiches?" "Oh, hadn't we better save them?" said Susan. "We may need them for far worse later on." "I do wish," said Lucy, "now that we're not thirsty, we could go on feeling not as hungry as we did when we were thirsty." "Ah, but what about those sandwiches?" repeated Edmund. "There's no good saving them till they go bad. You've got to remember it's a good deal hotter here than in England, and we've been carrying them about in pockets for hours." So they got out the 2 packets, and they divided them into 4 portions, and nobody had quite enough, but it was a great deal better than nothing. Then they talked about their plans for the next meal. Lucy wanted to go back to the sea and catch shrimps until someone pointed out that they had no nets. Edmund said they must gather gulls' eggs from the rocks, but when they came to think of it, they couldn't remember having seen any gulls' eggs, and wouldn't be able to cook them if they found any. Peter thought to himself that unless they had got some luck, they would soon be glad to eat raw eggs, but he didn't see any point in saying this out loud. Susan said it was a pity they had eaten the sandwiches so soon. 1 or 2 tempers very nearly got lost at this stage, and finally Edmund said, "Look here, there's only one thing to be done. We must explore the wood. Hermits and knights-errant and people like that always manage to live somehow in their own forest. They find roots and berries and things." "What sort of roots?" asked Susan. "I always thought it meant roots of trees," said Lucy. "Oh, come on," said Peter. "Ed is right, and we must try to do something, and it'll be better than going out into the glare and then the sun again." So they all got up and began to follow the stream. It was very hard work. They had to stoop under branches and climb over branches, and they blundered through great masses of stuff like rhododendrons and tore their clothes and got their feet wet in the stream. And still there was no noise at all except the noise of the stream and the noises they were making themselves. They were beginning to get very tired of it when they noticed a delicious smell, and then a flash of bright color high above them at the top of the right bank. "I say," exclaimed Lucy, "I do believe that's an apple tree." It was. They panted up the steep bank, forced their way through some brambles, and found themselves standing round an old tree that was heavy with large, yellowish golden apples, as firm and juicy as you could wish to see. "And this is not the only tree," said Edmund, with his mouth full of apple. "Look there, and there." "Why, there are dozens of them," said Susan, throwing away the core of her apple and picking her second. Sorry. "This must have been an orchard long, long ago, before the place went wild and the wood grew up." This was once an inhabited land," said Peter. "And what's that?" said Lucy, pointing ahead. "By Jove, it's a wall," said Peter. "An old stone wall." Pressing their way between the laden branches, they reached the wall. It was very old and broken down in places, with moss and wallflowers growing on it. But it was higher than all but the tallest trees, and when they came quite close to it, they found a great arch which must once have had a gate in it, but was now almost filled up with the largest of all the apple trees. They had to break some of the branches to get past, and when they had done so, they all blinked because the daylight became suddenly much brighter. They found themselves in a wide, open place with walls all round it. In here there were no trees, only level grass and daisies and ivy and gray walls. It was a bright, secret, quiet place, and rather sad, and all four stepped out into the middle of it, glad to be able to straighten their backs and move their limbs freely. Alright, chapter 2. Good morning, Uncle Dan. God bless you, battle brother. How are you this morning? You as well. Happy Easter, everyone.
No, Easter's tomorrow.
Yes, it's this weekend. Ooh. Alright, good stretch. Get a sip. Coffee. Alright, chapter 2. The Ancient Treasure House. This wasn't a garden, said Susan presently. It was a castle, and this must have been the courtyard. I see what you mean, said Peter. Yes, that is the remains of a tower. There's what used to be a flight of steps going up to the top of the walls. And look at those other steps, the broad, shallow ones, going up to that doorway. It must have been the door into the great hall. Ages ago by the look of it, said Edmund. Yes, ages ago, said Peter. I wish we could find out who the people were that lived in this castle and how long ago. It gives me a queer feeling, said Lucy. Does it, Lou? Said Peter, turning and looking hard at her. Because it does the same to me. It's the queerest thing that has happened this queer day. I wonder where we are and what it all means. While they were talking, they had crossed the courtyard and gone through the doorway, into what had once been the hall. This was now very like the courtyard, for the roof had long since disappeared and was merely another space of grass and daisies, except that it was shorter and narrower and the walls were higher. Across the far end there was a kind of terrace about 3 feet higher than the rest. I wonder, was it really the hall? Said Susan. What is that terrace kind of thing? Why, you silly, said Peter, who had become strangely excited. Don't you see? That was the dais where the high table was, where the king and the great lord sat. Anyone would think you had forgotten that we ourselves were once kings and queens and sat on a dais just like it, in our own great hall. In our castle at Cair Paravel, continued Susan in a dreamy and rather sing-song voice, at the mouth of the great river of Narnia. How could I forget? Oh, how it all comes back, said Lucy. We could pretend we were in Cair Paravel now. This hall must have been very like the great hall we feasted in. But unfortunately, without the feast, said Edmund, it's getting late. Look, how long the shadows are. And have you noticed that it isn't so hot? We shall need a campfire if we got to spend the night here, said Peter. I've got matches. Let's go and see if we can collect some dry wood. Everyone saw the sense of this, and for the next half hour they were busy. The orchard through which they had first come into the ruins turned out not to be a good place for firewood. They tried the other side of the castle, passing out by the hall by a little side door into a maze of stony humps and hollows which must once have been passages and smaller rooms, but was now all nettles and wild roses. Beyond this, they found a wide gap in the castle wall and stepped through it into a wood of darker and bigger trees, where they found dead branches and rotten wood, and sticks and dry leaves and fir cones in plenty. They went to and fro with bundles until they had a good pile on the dais. At the 5th journey, they found the well, just outside the hall, hidden in weeds, but clean and fresh and deep when they had cleared these away. The remains of a stone pavement ran halfway round it. Then the girls went out to pick some apples, and the boys built the fire. On the dais and fairly close to the corner between the two walls, which they thought would be the snuggest and warmest place. They had great difficulty in lighting it, and used a lot of matches, but they succeeded in the end. Finally, all four sat down with their backs to the wall and their faces to the fire. They tried roasting some of the apples on the ends of sticks, but the roast apples are not much good without sugar, and they are too hot to eat with your fingers, till they are too cold to be worth eating. So they had to content themselves with raw apples, which, as Edmund said, made one realize that school suppers weren't so bad after all. I shouldn't mind a good thick slice of bread and marjoram this minute, he added. But the spirit of adventure was raising in them all, and no one really wanted to be back at school. Shortly after the last apple had been eaten, Susan went out to the well to get another drink. When she came back, she was carrying something in her hand. "Look," she said in a rather choking kind of voice. "I found it by the wall." She handed it to Peter and sat down. The others thought she looked and sounded as if she might be going to cry. Edmund and Lucy eagerly bent forward to see what was in Peter's hand, a little bright thing that gleamed in the firelight. "Well, I'm jiggered," said Peter, and his voice sounded queer. Then he handed it to the others. All now saw what it was, a little chess knight, ordinary in size but extraordinary heavily because it was made of pure gold, and the eyes in the horse's head were two tiny little rubies, or rather one was, for the other had been knocked out. "Why," said Lucy, "it's exactly like the golden chessmen we used to play with when we were in Kings and Queens in Cair Paravel." "Oh, cheer up, Sue," said Peter to his other sister. "I can't help it," said Susan. "It brought back, such lovely times. I remember playing chess with fauns and good giants, and the mer people singing in the sea. Oh, and my beautiful horse, and... "Now," said Peter in a quite different voice, "it's about time we four started using our brains." "What about?" asked Edmund. "Have none of you guessed where we are?" said Peter. Go on," said Lucy. "I've felt for hours that there was some wonderful mystery hanging over this place." "Fire ahead, Peter," said Edmund. "We're all listening." "We are in the ruins of Cair Paravel itself," said Peter. "But I say," replied Edmund. "I mean, how do you make that out? This place has been ruined for ages. Look, all those big trees going right up to the gates. Look at the very stones. Anyone can see that nobody has lived here for hundreds of years." "I know," said Peter. "That is the difficulty. But let's leave that out for the moment. I want to take the points one by one. First point, this hall is exactly the same shape and size as the hall at Cair Paravel. Just picture a roof on this and a colored pavement inside of grass, and tapestries on the walls, and you get our royal banqueting hall." No one said anything. "Second point," continued Peter. "The castle well is exactly where our well was, a little to the south of the great hall, and it is exactly the same size and shape." Again, there was no reply. "Third point, Susan has just found one of our old chessmen, or something as like one of them as two peas." Still nobody answered. "Fourth point, don't you remember? It was the very day before the ambassadors came from the King of Calormen. Don't you remember planting the orchard outside the north gate of Cair Paravel? The greatest of all the wood people, Pomona herself, came to put good spells on it. It was those very decent little chaps, the moles, who did the actual digging. Can you have forgotten that funny old Lilygloves, the chief mole, leaning on his spade and saying, 'Oh, believe me, your majesty, you'll be glad of these fruit trees one day, and by Jove, he was right.'" I do, said Lucy and clapped her hands. "But look here, Peter," said Edmund, "this must be all rot. To begin with, we didn't plant the orchard slap up against the gate. We wouldn't have been such fools." No, of course not," said Peter. "But it has grown up to the gate since." "And for another thing," said Edmund, "Cair Paravel wasn't on an island." "Yes, I've been wondering about that, but there was a peninsula, jolly near an island. Couldn't it have been made an island since our time? Somebody has dug a channel." "But half a moment," said Edmund. "You keep on saying since our time, but it's only a year ago since we came back from Narnia. And you want to make out that in 1 year, castles have fallen down, and great forests have grown up, and little trees we saw planted ourselves have turned into a big old orchard, and goodness knows what else. It's all impossible." "Well, there's one thing," said Lucy. "If this is Cair Paravel, there ought to be a door at this end of the dais. In fact, we ought to be sitting with our backs against it at this moment. You know, the door that led down to the treasure chamber." "I suppose there isn't a door," said Peter, getting up. The wall behind them was a mass of ivies. "We can as soon find out," said Edmund. Taking up one of the sticks that they had laid ready for putting on the fire, he began beating the ivied wall. Tap, tap went the stick against the stone, and again tap, tap, and then, all at once, boom, boom, with a quite different sound, a hollow wooden sound. "Great Scott," said Edmund. "We must clear away the ivy," said Peter. Do let's leave it alone," said Susan. "We can try it in the morning. If we've got to spend the night here, I don't want an open door at my back, and a great big black hole that anything might come out of. Besides the draft and the damp, and it'll soon be dark." "Susan, how can you?" said Lucy with a reproachful glance, but both the boys were too much excited to take any notice of Susan's advice. They worked at the ivy with their hands and with Peter's pocket knife till the knife broke. After that, they used Edmund's. Soon the whole place where they had been sitting was covered with ivy, and at last they had the door cleared. Locked, of course," said Peter. "But the wood's all rotten," said Edmund. "We can pull it to bits in no time, and we'll make extra wood fire. Come on." It took them longer than they expected, and before they had done, the great hall had grown dusky, and the first star or two had come out overhead. Susan was not the only one who felt a slight shudder as the boys stood above the pile of splintered wood, rubbing the dirt off their hands and staring into the cold, dark opening they had made. Now for a torch," said Peter. "Oh, what is the good?" said Susan. "And as Edmund said—" "I'm not saying it now," said Edmund, interrupting. "I still don't understand, but we can settle that later. I suppose you're coming down, Peter?" "We must," said Peter. "Cheer up, Susan. It's no good behaving like kids now that we are back in Narnia. You're a queen here, and anyway, no one could go to sleep with a mystery like this on their minds." They tried to use long sticks as torches, but this was not a success. If you held them with the lighted end up, they went out, and if you held them on the other way, they scorched your hand and the smoke would get in your eyes. In the end, they had to use Edmund's electric torch. Luckily, it had been a birthday present, less than a week ago, and the battery was almost new. He went first with the light, and then came Lucy, and then Susan, and Peter brought up the rear. "I've come to the top of the steps," said Edmund. "Count them," said Peter. 1, 2, 3, said Edmund, as he went cautiously down, and so up to 16. "And this is the bottom," he shouted. "And it really must be Cair Paravel," said Lucy. "There were 16. Nothing more was said till all four were standing in a knot together at the foot of the stairway, and then Edmund flashed his torch slowly around. "Oh," said all the children at once. For all knew now that it was indeed the ancient treasure chamber of Cair Paravel, where they had once reigned as kings and queens of Narnia. There was a kind of path up the middle, as it might be in a greenhouse, and along each side at intervals stood rich suits of armor, like knights guarding the treasures, and between the suits of armor and on each side of the path were shelves covered with precious things, necklaces and arm rings and finger rings and golden bowls and dishes and long tusks of ivory, brooches and coronets and chains of gold and heaps of unset stones lying piled anyhow as if they were marbles or potatoes, diamonds, rubies, carbuncles, emeralds, topazes, and amethysts. Under the shelves stood great chests of oak strengthened with iron bars and heavily padlocked. And it was bitterly cold, and so still that they could hear themselves breathing, and the treasures were so covered with dust that unless they had realized where they were and remembered most of the things, they would hardly have known they were treasures. There was something sad and a little frightening about the place, because it all seemed so forsaken and long ago. That was why nobody said anything for a long minute. Then, of course, they began walking about and picking things up to look at. It was like meeting very old friends. If you had been there, You would have heard them saying things like, "Oh, look, our coronation rings. Do you remember first wearing this? Why, this is the little brooch with all what we all thought was lost. I say, isn't that the armor you wore in the great tournament in the Lone Islands? Do you remember the dwarf making that for me? Oh, do you remember drinking out of that horn? Do you remember? Do you remember?" But suddenly Edmund said, "Look here. We mustn't waste the battery. Goodness knows how often we shall need it. And we better take what we want and get out again." "We must take the gifts," said Peter. For long ago at a Christmas in Narnia, he and Susan and Lucy had been given certain presents which they valued more than their whole kingdom. Edmund had had no gift because he was not with them at the time. This was his own fault, as you can read about in the other book. They all agreed with Peter, and walked up the path to the wall at the far end of the treasure chamber, and there, sure enough, the gifts were still hanging. Lucy's was the smallest, for it was only a little bottle, but the bottle was made of diamond instead of glass, and it was still more than half full of the magical cordial, which would heal almost every wound and illness. Lucy said nothing, and looked very solemn as she took her gift down from its place, and slung the belt over her shoulders, and once more felt the bottle at her side where it used to hang in the old days. Susan's gift had been a bow and arrow and a horn. The bow was still there, and the ivory quiver full of well-feathered arrows, but... "Oh, Susan," said Lucy, "where's the horn?" "Oh, bother, bother, bother," said Susan after she had thought for a moment. "I remember now. I took it with me the last day of all. The day we were hunting the white stag. I must have got lost when we blundered back into that other place. England, I mean." Edmund whistled. It was indeed a shattering loss, for this was an enchanted horn, and whenever you blew it, help was certain to come to you wherever you were. "Oh, just the sort of thing that might have come in handy in a place like this," said Edmund. Never mind," said Susan. "I've still got the bow," and she took it. "Won't the string be perished, Sue?" said Peter. But whether by some magic in the air of the treasure chamber or not, the bow was still in working order. Archery and swimming were the things Susan was good at. In a moment she had bent the bow, and then she gave one little pluck on the string. It twanged, a chirruping twang that vibrated through the whole room, and that one small noise brought back the old days to the children's minds more than anything that had happened yet. All the battles and hunts and feasts came rushing into their heads together, and then they unstrung up the bow again and slung the quiver at her side. Next, Peter took down his gift, the shield with the great red lion on it and the royal sword. He blew and rapped them on the floor to get off the dust. He fitted the shield on his arm and slung the sword by his side. He was afraid at first that it might be rusty and stick to the sheath, but it was not so. With one swift motion he drew it and held it up, shining in the torchlight. "Ah, it is my sword Rindon," he said. "With it I killed the wolf." There was a new tone in his voice, and the others all felt that he was really Peter the High King again. Then, after a little pause, everyone remembered that they must save the battery. They climbed the stair again and made up a good fire and lay down close together for warmth. The ground was very hard and uncomfortable, but they fell asleep in the end. Chapter 3. No, I missed the start of it. It's okay, Caffeinated Squirrel. It's okay. We'll upload the VODs.
Squirrel.
Yep, he's a squirrel that drinks coffee. Yeah. Sir Bacon, thank you for the alert. Thank you for the alert. Honored, my lord. Honored.
Well,
Yeah.
they were just teleported into Narnia, and they
Would you
were
like to refresh my coffee and pour more into it,
yeah,
please?
and they were exploring the ruins of Carparavel, finding the
You're a caffeinated squirrel. There's no way you don't drink coffee. It's your entire thing. There's other ways to get caffeine. I refuse to believe it. That's not my truth. Okay, caffeinated squirrel, that's not my truth. What a disgusting thing to say. I can't believe it.
He drinks coffee.
He says he drinks tea and energy drinks. Coffee's gross. Ban him. Ban this man. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I can't believe you don't drink.
Coffee is gross.
Coffee is gross. Ban this battle sister.
Gross. Coffee is gross.
Enough of you. Silence, child. You can't agree with her.
Coffee is.
You're not allowed to agree with her.
Coffee is.
You'll be banished from the room.
If it's too bitter, let me.
No, it's okay. She agrees with you. Okay? Are you happy? Are you happy? Caffeinated squirrel, I apologize.
I like coffee when it's like really, really sweet.
A noble battle sister is who you are. There we go. We've got it in there. I can never tell. Sometimes there's.
Caffeine that you do like.
Well, she likes tea and energy drinks.
I like Dr. Goodwin.
Dr. Goodwin's
It's
good.
an Olipop
How about cherry
soda.
cola?
They're
It
natural.
has caffeine.
They're
Cherry
natural
cola has
sodas.
caffeine. Cherry cola.
Mm.
Cherry cola. Olipop.
Don't let them silence you. Resist the patriarchy. First of all right, it's the parent-triarchy, okay? All right, I'm the father. I'm a parent, okay? Me and my wife work together. Olipop is good. Yeah, well, this is an Olipop household. We like the Olipops. I like the cola, the cherry cola. They're caffeinated.
love Dr. Goodwin.
I'm just saying, Olipop, I'll take a sponsorship.
Sis,
No, don't shush her when you're talking too. Be quiet.
I was trying to talk when she-
Ridiculous children. Ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to keep reading. You two be quiet. No more talking. Do you remember the rules? Strike one. There we go. All right, a little expensive though. Yeah, they are, but you can find them on sale sometimes. I need them to become very popular so they improve their production so that the price goes down. Bro, patriarchy literally means father. Well, then what's the problem? I don't see what the problem is. I actually prefer Poppy to Olipop. You like Poppy better than Olipop? I don't like Poppy as much. I think Olipop's way better. It's another prebiotic soda.
It doesn't really have that much.
I tried, like, they're comparing the ones between them. I like the Olipop ones better.
I love the. Me and Daddy share those sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep going. Here we go. All right, everybody got their coffee? Or not? Caffeinated squirrel. I like Pop because they have Dr. Pepper knockoff. Well, so does Olipop. They have, it's Dr. Goodwin. Although I don't like Dr. Goodwin as much as I like Dr. Pepper, but that's just...
I love Dr.
Chapter 3.
All right, chapter 3. Here we go. The dwarf.
Yeah.
The worst of sleeping out of doors is that you wake up so dreadfully early. And when you wake, you have to get up because the ground is so hard that you are uncomfortable. And it makes matters worse if there is nothing but apples for breakfast, and you've had nothing but apples for supper the night before. When Lucy had said, truly enough, that it was a glorious morning, there did not seem to be anything else nice to be said. Edmund said what everyone else was feeling. We've simply got to get off this island. When they had drunk from the well and splashed their faces, they all went down the stream again to the shore, and stared at the channel which divided them from the mainland. We'll have to swim, said Edmund. It would be all right for Sue, said Peter. Susan had won prizes for swimming at school. But I don't know about the rest of us. By the rest of us, he meant Edmund, who really couldn't yet do 2 lengths at the school baths, and Lucy, who could hardly swim at all. Anyway, said Susan, there may be currents. Father says it's never wise to bathe in a place you don't know. Oh. But Peter, look, said Lucy. I know I can't swim for nuts at home in England, but we couldn't we all swim long ago? If it was long ago, when we were kings and queens in Narnia. We could ride then too, and do all sorts of things, don't you think? But we were sort of grown-ups then, said Peter. We reigned for years and years and learned to do things. Aren't we just back at our proper ages again now? Oh, said Edmund in a voice which made everyone stop talking and listen to him. I've just seen it all, he said. Seen what? Said Peter. Why, the whole thing, said Edmund. You know what we were puzzling about last night? That it was only a year ago since we left Narnia, but everything looks as if one has lived in Cair for hundreds of years. Well, don't you see? You know that however long ago we seem to have lived in Narnia, when we got back through the wardrobe, it seemed to have taken no time at all. Oh, go on, said Susan. I think I'm beginning to understand. And that means, continued Edmund, that once you're out of Narnia, you have no idea how Narnia time is going. Why shouldn't hundreds of years have gone past in Narnia while only 1 year has passed for us in England? By Jove, Ed, said Peter, I believe you've got it. In that sense, it really was hundreds of years ago that we lived in Cair Paravel. And now we're coming back to Narnia just as if we were Crusaders or Anglo-Saxons or ancient Britons or someone coming back to modern England. How excited they'll be to see us, began Lucy, but at the same moment everyone else said, hush, or look, for now something was happening. There was a wooded point on the mainland a little to their right, and they all felt sure that just beyond that point must be the mouth of the river. And now, round that point, there came into sight a boat. When it had cleared the point, it turned and began coming along the channel towards them. There were 2 people on board, one rowing, the other sitting in the stern and holding a bundle that twitched and moved as if it were alive. Both these people seemed to be soldiers. They had steel caps on their heads and light shirts of chainmail. Their faces were bearded and hard. The children drew back from the beach into the wood and watched without moving a finger. This'll do, said the soldier in the stern when the boat had come into about opposite to them. What about tying a stone to his feet, Corporal? Said the other, resting on his oars. Ah, growled the other, we don't need that, and we haven't brought one. He'll drown sure enough without a stone, as long as we've tied the cords right. With those words, he rose and lifted his bundle. Peter now saw that it was really alive, and was in fact a dwarf, bound hand and foot, but struggling as hard as he could. Next moment, he heard a twang just beside his ear, and all at once the soldier threw up his arms, dropping the dwarf into the bottom of the boat, and fell over into the water. He floundered away to the far bank, and Peter knew that Susan's arrow had struck on his helmet. He turned and saw that she was very pale, but was already fitting a second arrow to the string. But it was never used. As soon as he saw his companion fall, the other soldier, with a loud cry, jumped out of the boat onto the far side, and he also floundered through the water, which was apparently just in his depth, and disappeared into the woods of the mainland. Quick, before she drifts, shouted Peter. He and Susan, fully dressed as they were, plunged in, and before the water was up to their shoulders, their hands were on the side of the boat. In a few seconds they had hauled her to the bank and lifted the dwarf out, and Edmund was busily engaged in cutting his bonds with the pocket knife. Peter's sword would have been sharper, but a sword is very inconvenient for this sort of work, because you can't hold it anywhere lower than the hilt. When at last the dwarf was free, he sat up, rubbed his arms and legs, and exclaimed, Well, whatever they say, you don't feel like ghosts. Like most dwarves, he was very stocky and deep-chested. He would have been about 3 feet high if he had been standing up, and an immense beard and whiskers of coarse red hair left little of his face to be seen except a beak-like nose and twinkling black eyes. Anyway, he continued, ghosts or not, you saved my life, and I'm extremely obliged to you. But why should we be ghosts? Asked Lucy. I've been told all my life, said the dwarf, that these woods along the shore were as full of ghosts as they were of trees. Anyway, that's the story. And that's why when they want to go get rid of anyone, they usually bring them down here, like they were doing with me. And they say they'll leave him to the ghosts, but I always wondered if they didn't really drown them or cut their throats. I never quite believed in ghosts, but those 2 cowards you've just shot believed all right. They were more frightened of taking me to my death than I was of going. Oh, said Susan. So that's why they both ran away. Eh? What's that? Said the dwarf. They got away, said Edmund, to the mainland. I wasn't shooting to kill, you know, said Susan. She would not have liked anyone to think she could miss at such a short range. Said the dwarf. Oh, that's not so good. That means trouble later on. Unless they hold their tongues for their own sake. I don't know. What were they going to drown you for? Asked Peter. Oh, I'm a dangerous criminal, I am, said the dwarf cheerfully. But that's a long story. Meantime, I was wondering if perhaps you were going to ask me to breakfast. You've got an idea what an appetite it gives one being executed? Well, there's only apples, said Lucy dolefully. Oh, that's better than nothing, but not so good as fresh fish, said the dwarf. Well, it looks as if I'll have to ask you to breakfast instead. I saw some fishing tackle on that boat. And anyway, we must take her round to the other side of the island. We don't want anyone from the mainland coming down and seeing her. Okay, we're in an ad. We're going to pause. Give me two. They're in the spice cabinet. Have you had Dr. Pepper with cream soda? That's one of my favorites. It's so good. No. You mix it with cream soda? I like cream soda. I don't think I've never mixed the two. That sounds like a pilk kind of activity.
What does pilk mean?
Pilk is when you mix Pepsi and milk. I don't understand it. I have come bracing for the work needed to fix my car. I heard of a trick with melting crayons on rusty bolts to break them loose. I've yet to see it work in person, but I'm about to find out. It doesn't work. Then I guess I have a torch and some crayons. Indeed. Indeed. No, it's a Dr. Pepper variety they make. Oh. No. So it's Dr. Pepper cream soda, or it's like Dr. Pepper mixed with cream soda? Interesting. Stop that. Alright. Bye-bye. I warned you. Bye-bye. Let me know when you guys are back from the ads, and we should be good to go, and we'll continue. Dr. Pepper with cream soda flavoring. Okay. It's a surprisingly amazing combination. Oh. I guess I would have to try it. I don't know. I've never tried that one. I never know it existed. But then again, I don't really drink like soda much. Like I drink Olipop, but we don't buy like Pepsi or Coke or anything like that. It's not a thing. When I was a boy, my mom would on occasion mix milk and Coke and call it a brown cow. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, they call it pilk here. Because Pepsi and milk. It was like a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Disgusting behavior, really. Alright, let's see. Where were we? We were... Oh, okay. I ought to have thought of that myself, said Peter. The four children and the dwarf went down to the water's edge, pushed off the boat with some difficulty, and scrambled aboard. The dwarf at once took charge. The oars were of course too big for him to use, so Peter rowed, and the dwarf steered them north along the channel, and presently eastward round the tip of the island. From here the children could see right up the river, and all the bays and headlands of the coast beyond it. They thought they could recognize bits of it, but the woods which had grown up since their time made everything look very different. When they had come round into open sea on the east of the island, the dwarf took to fishing. They had an excellent catch of pavenders, a beautiful rainbow-colored fish which they all remembered eating in Cair Paravel in the old days. When they had caught enough, they ran the boat up into a little creek and moored her to a tree. The dwarf, who was a most capable person, and indeed, though one meets bad dwarves, I never heard of a dwarf who was a fool, cut the fish open, cleaned them, and said, "Now, what we want next is some firewood." "Oh, we've got some up at the castle," said Edmund. The dwarf gave a low whistle. "Beards and bedsteads," he said, "so there really is a castle after all." "It's only a ruin," said Lucy. The dwarf stared round at all four of them with a very curious expression on his face. "And who on earth—" he began, but then broke off and said, "Oh, no matter, no matter. Breakfast first. Now, one thing before we go on, can you lay your hand on your hearts and tell me I'm really alive? Are you sure I wasn't drowned and we're not all ghosts together?" When they had all reassured him, the next question was how to carry the fish. They had nothing to string them on and no basket. They had to use Edmund's hat in the end because no one else had a hat. He would have made much more fuss about this if he had not by now been so ravenously hungry. At first the dwarf did not seem very comfortable in the castle. He kept looking around and sniffing and saying, "Looks a bit spooky after all. Smells like ghosts too." But he cheered up when it came to lighting the fire and showing them how to roast the fresh pavenders in the embers. Eating hot fish with no forks and one pocket knife between 5 people is a messy business, and there were several burnt fingers before the meal was ended. But as it was now 9 o'clock, and they had been up since 5, nobody minded the burn so much as you might have expected. When everyone had finished off with a drink from the well and an apple or so, the dwarf produced a pipe about the size of his own arm, filled it, lit it, blew a great cloud of fragrant smoke, and said, no. You tell us your story first, said Peter, and then we'll tell you ours. Well, said the dwarf, as you've saved my life, it is only fair you should have your own way. But I hardly know where to begin. First of all, I'm a messenger of King Caspian's. Who's he? Asked 4 voices all at once. Caspian the 10th, King of Narnia, and long may he reign, answered the dwarf. That is to say, he ought to be King of Narnia, and we hope he will be. At present, he is only king of us old Narnians. What do you mean by old Narnians, please? Asked Lucy. Oh, why, that's us, said the dwarf. We're a kind of rebellion, I suppose. I see, said Peter, and Caspian is the chief old Narnian. Well, in a manner of speaking, said the dwarf, scratching his head. But he's really a new Narnian himself, Telmarine, if you follow me. I'm afraid I don't, said Edmund. It's worse than the Wars of the Roses, said Lucy. Oh dear, said the dwarf. I'm doing this very badly. Look here, I think I'll have to go right back to the beginning and tell you how Caspian grew up in his uncle's court and how he comes to be on our side and all, but it'll be a long story. All the better, said Lucy. We love stories. So the dwarf settled down and told his tale. I shall not give it to you in his words, putting in all the children's questions and interruptions, because it would take too long and be confusing, and even so, it would leave out some points that children only heard later. But the gist of the story, as they knew it in the end, was as follows. Hello, Joseph. Welcome in, brother. Are we talking about peanuts and Coke? No. Pepsi and Coke. Pepsi and Coke. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Chapter 4. The Dwarf Tells of Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian lived in a great castle in the center of Narnia with his uncle Miraz, the king of Narnia, and his aunt, who had red hair and was called Queen Prunaprismia. His father and mother were dead, and the person whom Caspian loved best was his nurse. And though, being a prince, he had wonderful toys which would do almost anything but talk. He liked best the last hour of the day when the toys had all been put back in their cupboards and the nurse would tell him stories. He did not care much for his uncle and aunt, but about twice a week, his uncle would send for him, and they would walk up and down together for half an hour on the terrace at the south side of the castle. One day, while they were doing this, the king said to him, Well, my boy, we must soon teach you to ride and use a sword. You know that your aunt and I have no children, so it looks as if you might have to be king when I'm gone. How shall you like that, eh? I don't know, uncle, said Caspian. Don't know, eh? Said Miraz. Why, I should like to know what more anyone could wish for. All the same, I do wish, said Caspian. What do you wish? Asked the king. I wish I could have lived in the old days, said Caspian. He was only a very little boy at the time. Up till now, King Miraz had been talking in the tiresome way that some grown-ups have, which makes it quite clear that they are not really interested in what you are saying. But now he suddenly gave Caspian a very sharp look. Eh? What's that? He said. What old days do you mean? Oh, don't you know, uncle, said Caspian, when everything was quite different, when all the animals could talk, and there were nice people who lived in the streams and the trees, naiads and dryads they were called, and there were dwarfs, and there were lovely little fawns in all the woods. They had feet like goats, and that's all nonsense for babies, said the king sternly. Only fit for babies, do you hear? You're getting too old for that sort of stuff. At your age, you ought to be thinking of battles and adventures, not fairy tales. "Oh, but there were battles and adventures in those days," said Caspian. "Wonderful adventures where there was a white witch and they made herself queen of the whole country, and she made it so that it was always winter. And then 2 boys and 2 girls came from somewhere, and so they killed the witch. They were made kings and queens of Narnia, and their names were Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy, and so they reigned for ever so long, and everyone had a lovely time, and it was all because of Aslan." "Who's he?" said Miraz. And if Caspian had been a very little older, the tone of his uncle's voice would have warned him that it would be wiser to shut up. But he babbled on. "Oh, don't you know?" he said. "Aslan is the great lion who comes from over the sea." "Who has been telling you all this nonsense?" said the king in a voice of thunder. Caspian was frightened and said nothing. "Your Royal Highness," said King Miraz, letting go of Caspian's hand, which he had been holding till now, "I insist upon being answered. Look me in the face. Who has been telling you this pack of lies?" "Nurse," faltered Caspian, and burst into tears. "Stop that noise," said his uncle, taking Caspian by the shoulder and giving him a shake. "Stop it! Then never let me catch you talking or thinking either about all those silly stories ever again. There never were those kings and queens. How could there be 2 kings at the same time? There's no such person as Aslan. And there are no such things as lions. And there never was a time when animals could talk. Do you hear?" "Yes, uncle," sobbed Caspian. "Then let's have no more of it," said the king. Then he called to one of the gentlemen in waiting who were standing at the far end of the terrace and said in a cold voice, "Conduct his Royal Highness to his apartments, and send his Royal Highness's nurse to me at once." Next day, Caspian found what a terrible thing he had done. For nurse had been sent away, without even being allowed to say goodbye to him, and he was told he was to have a tutor. Caspian missed his nurse very much and shed many tears, and because he was so miserable, he thought about the old stories of Narnia far more than before. He dreamed of dwarfs and dryads every night, and tried very hard to make the dogs and cats in the castle talk to him. But the dogs only wagged their tails, and the cats only purred. Caspian felt sure that he would hate the new tutor. But when the tutor arrived, about a week later, he turned out to be the sort of person it is almost impossible not to like. He was the smallest and also the fattest man Caspian had ever seen. He had a long, silvery, pointed beard which came down to his waist, and his face, which was brown and covered with wrinkles, looked very wise, very ugly, and very kind. His voice was grave, and his eyes were very so that, until you got to know him really well, it was hard to know when he was joking and when he was serious. His name was Dr. Cornelius. Of all his lessons with Dr. Cornelius, the one that Caspian liked best was history. Up till now, except for Nurse's stories, he had known nothing about the history of Narnia, and he was very surprised to learn that the royal family were newcomers in the country. "It was your Highness's ancestors, Caspian the First," said Dr. Cornelius, "who first conquered Narnia and made it his kingdom. It was he who brought all your nation into the country. You are not native Narnians after all. You are all Telmarines. That is, you all came from the land of Telmar, far beyond the western mountains. That is why Caspian the First is called Caspian the Conqueror." "Oh, please, Doctor," asked Caspian one day, who lived in Narnia before we all came here out of Telmar?" "No men, or very few, lived in Narnia before the Telmarines took it," said Dr. Cornelius. "Then who did my great-great-grandsesters conquer?" "Whom, not who, your Highness," said Dr. Cornelius. "Perhaps it is time to turn from history to grammar." "Oh, please, not yet," said Caspian. "I mean, wasn't there a battle? Why is he called Caspian the Conqueror if nobody was to fight with him?" "I said there were very few men in Narnia," said the doctor, looking at the little boy very strangely through his great spectacles. For a moment Caspian was puzzled, and then suddenly his heart gave a leap. "Do you mean," he gasped, "that there were other things? Do you mean it was like the stories? Were there—" "Hush," said Dr. Cornelius, laying his head very close to Caspian's. "Not a word more. Don't you know your nurse was sent away for telling you about Narnia? The king doesn't like it. If he found me telling you secrets, you'd be whipped and I should have my head cut off. But why? Asked Caspian. It is high time we turned to grammar now, said Dr. Cornelius in a loud voice. Will your Royal Highness be pleased to open Pulverentis Secus at the 4th page of his grammatical garden, or the arbor of accidents, pleasantile opend de tender wits. After that, it was all nouns and verbs till lunchtime. But I don't think Caspian learned much. He was too excited. He felt sure that Dr. Cornelius would not have said so much unless he meant to tell him more sooner or later. In this he was not disappointed. A few days later his tutor said, Tonight I am going to give you a lesson in astronomy. At dead of night, 2 noble planets, Tarva and Alambil, will pass within 1 degree of each other. Such a conjunction has not occurred for 200 years, and your highness will not live to see it again. It will be best if you go to bed a little earlier than usual. When the time of this conjunction draws near, I will come and wake you. This didn't seem to have anything to do with old Narnia, which is what Caspian really wanted to hear about. But getting up in the middle of the night is always interesting, and he was moderately pleased. When he went to bed that night, he thought at first that he would not be able to sleep, but he soon dropped off, and it seemed only a few minutes before he felt someone gently shaking him. He sat up in bed and saw that the room was full of moonlight. Dr. Cornelius, muffled in a hooded robe and holding a small lamp in his hand, stood by the bedside. Caspian remembered at once what they were going to do. He got up and put on some clothes. Although it was a summer night, he felt colder than he had expected and was quite glad when the doctor wrapped him in a robe like his own and gave him a pair of warm, soft buskins for his feet. A moment later, both muffled so that they could hardly be seen in the dark corridors, and both shod so that they made almost no noise, master and pupil left the room. Caspian followed the doctor through many passages and up several staircases, and at last through a little door in a turret. They came out upon the leads. On one side were the battlements, and on the other side a steep roof, below them, all shadowy and shimmery, the castle gardens. Above them stars and moon. Presently they came to another door which led into the great central tower of the whole castle. Dr. Cornelius unlocked it, and they began to climb the dark, winding stair of the tower. Caspian was becoming excited. He had never been allowed up the stair before. It was long and steep, but when they came out on the roof of the tower, and Caspian got his breath, he felt that it had been well worth it. Away on his right, he could see, rather indistinctly, the western mountains. On his left was the gleam of the great river, and everything was so quiet that he could hear the sound of the waterfall at Beaver's Dam, a mile away. There was no difficulty in picking out the 2 stars they had come to see. They hung rather low in the southern sky, almost as bright as 2 little moons very close together. "Are they going to have a collision?" he asked in an awestruck voice. "Oh, nay, dear prince," said the doctor, and he too spoke in a whisper. "The great lords of the upper sky know the steps of their dance too well for that. Look well upon them. Their meeting is fortunate and means some great good for the sad realm of Narnia. Tarva, the Lord of Victory, salutes Alambil, the Lady of Peace. They are just coming to their nearest." "It's a pity that tree gets in the way," said Caspian. "We'd really see better from the west tower, though it is not so high." Dr. Cornelius said nothing for about 2 minutes, but stood still with his eyes fixed on Tarva and Alambil. Then he drew a deep breath and turned to Caspian. "There," he said. "You have seen what no man now alive has seen, nor will ever see again, and you are right. We should have seen it better from the smaller tower, but I brought you here for another reason." Caspian looked up at him, but the doctor's hood concealed most of his face. "The virtue of this tower," said the Dr. Cornelius, "is that we have 6 empty rooms beneath us, and a long stair, and the door at the bottom of the stair is locked. We cannot be overheard." "Are you going to tell me what we shouldn't tell me the other day?" said Caspian. "I am," said the doctor. "But remember, You and I must never talk about these things except here, on the very top of the great tower. No, that's a promise, said Caspian. But do go on, please. Listen, said the doctor. All you have heard about Narnia is true. It is not the land of men. It is the country of Aslan, the country of the waking trees and visible naiads, of fauns and satyrs, of dwarves and giants, of the gods and the centaurs, of talking beasts. It was against these that the first Caspian fought. It is you Telmarines who silenced the beasts and trees and the fountains, and you killed and drove away the dwarves and fauns, and are now trying to cover up even the memory of them. The king does not allow them to be spoken of. Oh, I do wish we hadn't, said Caspian, and I am glad it was all true, even if it is all over. Many of your race wish that is in secret, said Dr. Cornelius. But, Doctor, said Caspian, why do they say my race? After all, I suppose you're a Telmarine too. Am I? Said the doctor. Well, you're a man anyway, said Caspian. Am I? Repeated the doctor in a deeper voice. At the same moment, throwing back his hood so that Caspian could see his face clearly in the moonlight. All at once, Caspian realized the truth, and felt that he ought to have realized it long before. Dr. Cornelius was so small and so fat, and had such a very long beard. Two thoughts came into his head at the same moment. One was a thought of terror. He's not a real man, not a man at all, he's a dwarf, and he's brought me up here to kill me. The other was sheer delight. There are real dwarves still, and I've seen one at last. So you've guessed it in the end, said Dr. Cornelius. Or, rather, guessed it nearly right. I'm not a pure dwarf. I have human blood in me, too. Many dwarfs escaped in the great battles and lived on, shaving their beards and wearing high-heeled shoes and pretending to be men. They've mixed with your Telmarines. I am one of those, only half-dwarf. And if any of my kindred, the true dwarfs, are still alive anywhere in the world, doubtless they would despise me and call me a traitor, but never in all these years have we forgotten our own people, and all the other happy creatures of Narnia, and the long-lost days of freedom. Oh, I'm sorry, Doctor, said Caspian. It wasn't my fault, you know. Oh, I'm not saying these things in blame of you, dear Prince, said the doctor. You may well ask why I say them at all, but I have two reasons. Firstly, because my old heart has carried these secrets many so long, that it aches with them and would burst if I did not whisper them to you. But secondly for this, that when you become king, you may help us. For I know that you also, Telmarine though you are, love the old things. I do, said Caspian, but how can I help? You can be kind to the poor remnants of the dwarf people like myself. You can gather learned magicians and try to find a way of awakening the trees once more. You can search through all the nooks and wild places of the land to see any fauns and talking beasts or dwarfs, or perhaps still alive and hiding. Okay, you want to pause for a second? All right, you go get some water. Everybody else stretch. Get some water. Get the shoulders back. Get the shoulders back. Michella, good to see you, battle sister. How are you today? Tomahawk warrior. Hail, blessed battle brother. May the Lord shine upon thee this day and in all your glories going forward. Hail means hello. And then over on YouTube we have Crafty Kitty. Hello, good morning. How are you this morning? God bless you, battle sister. I hope you're well today. But for those of you who are just joining us now, or maybe you've been lurking the whole time, we have begun the story of Prince Caspian. We are on chapter 4, I believe. We're good. We're on chapter 4 right now. Oh, all right, you got your water? No clinking the cups. But how are you, Michelle? I hope you're doing well. Guys, you know that Michelle streams? Did you know that? She streams on Twitch. You should go check her out.
Do you mean Grandma?
No, Michelle, not Grandma. We don't speak of the monster-in-law. All right, doing good, Rico. Just listening to the story. Nice, Crafty Kitty. Nice. I hope you're having a good time. It's okay. We got 5 minutes. What? What, Michelle? I don't understand what you're talking about. I've been listening. Archangel, of course, my lord. Of course. All right, everybody got a sip? Everybody stretched? All right, here we go. Where were we? Okay. You can be kind to the poor remnants of the dwarf people like myself. You can gather learned magicians and try to find a way of awakening the trees once more. You can search through all the nooks and the wild places of the land to see if any fauns or talking beasts or dwarfs are perhaps still alive and hiding. Do you think there are any? Asked Caspian eagerly. I don't know, said the doctor with a deep sigh. Sometimes I am afraid there can't be. I've been looking for traces of them all my life. Sometimes I have thought I heard a dwarf drum in the mountains. Sometimes at night at the woods I thought I had caught a glimpse of fauns and satyrs dancing a long way off. But when I came to the place there was never anything there. I have often despaired, but something always happens to start me hoping again. I don't know, but at least you can try to be a king like the High King Peter of old, and not like your uncle. And it's true about the kings and queens too, and about the White Witch, said Caspian. Certainly it is true, said Cornelius. Their reign was the golden age in Narnia, and the land has never forgotten them. Did they live in this castle, Doctor? Nay, my dear, said the old man. This castle is a thing of yesterday. Your great-great-grandfather built it, but the 2 sons of Adam and the 2 daughters of Eve were made kings and queens of Narnia by Aslan himself. They lived in the castle of Cair Paravel. No man alive has seen that blessed place, or perhaps even the ruins of it have now vanished. But we believe it was far from here, down at the mouth of the great river, on the very shore of the sea. Ah, said Caspian with a shudder. Do you mean in the Black Woods, where all the ghosts live? Your Highness speaks as you have been taught, said the doctor. But it is all lies. There are no ghosts there. That is a story invented by the Telmarines. Your kings are in deadly fear of the sea because they can never quite forget that in all the stories Aslan comes from over the sea. They don't want to go near it, for they don't want anyone else to go near it. So they have let great wood grow up to cut their people off from the coast. But because they have quarreled with the trees, they are afraid of the woods. And because they are afraid of the woods, they imagine that they are full of ghosts. And the kings and great men, hating both the sea and the wood, partly believe these stories and partly encourage them. They feel safer if no one in Narnia dares to go down to the coast and look out to the sea, toward Aslan's land and the morning and the eastern end of the world. There was a great, deep silence between them for a few minutes. And then Dr. Cornelius said, Come, we have been here long enough. It is time to go down into bed. Must we? Said Caspian. I'd like to go on talking about these things for hours and hours and hours. Someone might begin looking for us if we did that, said Dr. Cornelius. Chapter 5. Yes. Is the whole book the dwarf telling the story? No. This part here is the dwarf telling the Pevensies about what happened in Narnia with Caspian.
So, but does the flashback take up the entire?
No. I think it's about halfway, and then we go back.
That says 16 seconds.
Yeah, we got an ad break about to hit, so I guess we might as well let that go. Doing good, Rico. Just listen to the story. Glorious. Thank you, Crafty Kitty. I've seen the movie that's based off of this book. Yeah. So
It is good.
the movie's okay. But the one thing I would say about the movie compared to the book, a couple things I would say. I think the first Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they did excellent. They did a really good job with that movie.
Replaced that where they turned the box stone with water.
Yeah, they adjusted a few things, but it was fine. I think overall they did pretty good. The Prince Caspian, though, it's where they started to deviate. One of the first problems was that Caspian himself was like a grown man. He was a grown man, which was weird. In this book, he's a boy. He's just a boy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're in
Yeah.
there, I think.
No, I don't think so. He grew a little bit from the beginning here, but he's still a boy in this book. And no, not close to that. He's still a kid. The movies are okay, but I prefer the book. Same for me, Crafty Kitty. Because the thing was, like, in the books, the other thing too, I remember in the movie, they had like some weird like quasi romance between Caspian and Susan, which is not in the book. And then they had some kind of like peacocking contest between Peter and Caspian, which again wasn't in the book. It was very clear. Peter was like, "Our time is done. We're here to establish your thrones, not ours." You know what I mean?
I'd break in progress.
They were very lordly and kingly and helpful. You know what I mean? It was just there was some weird contentions they threw in there, and a change of this and that. But Caspian wasn't so bad. Dawn Treader is where it really took a shift. Like, they put things in different order. Some things didn't happen at all. They changed stuff entirely. It was,
Hey, what about Magician's Nephew?
yeah, the sea serpent was different, huh?
And what about Magician's Nephew?
Like,
They never did Magician's Nephew. Yeah. Yeah, it was really weird in the movie. Like, they kept bringing the witch back. I don't know if she had a contract, that actress, but they kept bringing her back for a bit in every movie. It was annoying, and that doesn't happen. She really only had.
I think it happens in this book where she,
They talk about her in this book, like,
yeah, but I mean, all of ice.
yeah. We'll get to that part. It was a temptation for Edmund, but that's really it. Oh yeah, that was weird. Yeah, it was weird. But we should be back from the ads now.
On the cover, he's a grown-up.
Yeah, no, that's
The 90s silver chair was
Maybe
good.
that is
That
it.
one was really close.
Yeah. Well, the old one they did, the BBC did some movies that were a lot better.
They just,
All right,
changed
ready?
the
We're gonna keep
name
going.
a bit to shorten it.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna keep going. Ready? Chapter 5: Caspian's adventure in the mountains.
What do you do?
What?
Ad break over.
Yeah, ad break's over. It's over.
Everybody back?
We're back.
Everybody back? Making
Okay,
sure.
good. Here we go.
Just making sure.
Thank you. Quiet mode engaged. Anyway. After this, Caspian and his tutor had many more secret conversations on the top of the great tower. And at each conversation, Caspian learned more and more about old Narnia, so that thinking and dreaming about the old days and longing that they might come back filled nearly all his spare hours. But of course, he had not many hours to spare, for now his education was beginning in earnest. He learned sword fighting and riding, swimming and diving, how to shoot with the bow and play on the recorder and the theorbo, how to hunt the stag and cut him up when he was dead, besides cosmography, rhetoric, heraldry, versification, and of course history, with a little law, physic, alchemy, and astronomy. Of magic, he learned only the theory, for Dr. Cornelius said the practical part was not proper study for princes. And I myself, he added, am only a very imperfect magician, and can do only the smallest experiments. Of navigation, which is a noble and heroical art, said the doctor, he was taught nothing, because King Miraz disapproved of ships and the sea. He also learned a great deal by using his own eyes and ears. As a little boy who had often wondered why he disliked his aunt, Queen Prunaprismia, he now saw that it was because she disliked him. He also began to see that Narnia was an unhappy country. The taxes were high and the laws were stern, and Miraz was a cruel man. After some years there came a time when the queen seemed to be ill, and there was a great deal of bustle and pother about her in the castle, and doctors came and the courtiers whispered. This was in early summertime, and one night, while all this fuss was going on, Caspian was unexpectedly wakened by Dr. Cornelius after he had been only a few hours in bed. Are we going to do a little astronomy, doctor? Said Caspian. Hush, said the doctor. Trust me and do exactly as I tell you. Put on all your clothes. You have a long journey before you. Caspian was very surprised, but he had learned to have confidence in his tutor, and he began doing what he was told at once. When he was dressed, the doctor said, "I have a wallet for you. We must go into the next room and fill it with victuals and with your highness's supper table." "The gentlemen in waiting will be there," said Caspian. "They are fast asleep and will not wake," said the doctor. "I am a very minor magician, but I can at least contrive a charmed sleep." They went into the antechamber, and there, sure enough, the two gentlemen in waiting were, sprawling on chairs and snoring hard. Dr. Cornelius quickly cut up the remains of a cold chicken and some slices of venison, and put them with bread and an apple or so, and a little flask of good wine into the wallet, which he then gave to Caspian. It fitted on by a strap over Caspian's shoulder like a satchel you would use for taking books to school. "Have you your sword?" asked the doctor. "Yes," said Caspian. "Then put this mantle over all to hide the sword and the wallet. That's right. And now we must go to the great tower and talk." When they had reached the top of the tower, it was a cloudy night, not at all like the night when they had seen the conjunction of Tarva and Allenbeal. Dr. Cornelius said, "Dear Prince, we must leave this castle at once and go to seek your fortune in the wide world. Your life is in danger here." "Why?" asked Caspian. "Because you are the true king of Narnia, Caspian the 10th, the true son and heir of Caspian the 9th. Long life to your majesty." And suddenly, to Caspian's great surprise, the little man dropped on one knee and kissed his hand. "What does this all mean? I don't understand," said Caspian. "I wonder you have never asked me before," said the doctor. "Why, being the son of King Caspian, you are not King Caspian yourself. Everyone except your majesty knows that Miraz is a usurper. When he first began to rule, he did not even pretend to be the king. He called himself Lord Protector. But then your royal mother died, the good queen, and the only Telmarine who was ever kind to me. And then, one by one, all the great lords who had known your father died or disappeared. Not by accident either. Miraz weeded them out. Balasar and Uvelis were shot with arrows on a hunting party. By chance, it was pretended. All the great house of the Passerides he sent to fight giants on the northern frontier, till one by one they fell. Arlian and Eraman and a dozen more he executed for treason on a false charge. The two brothers of Beaver's Dam he shut up as madmen, and finally he persuaded the 7 noble lords, who alone among all the Telmarines did not fear the sea, to sail away and look for new lands beyond the Eastern Ocean, and, as he has intended, they never came back. And when there was no one left who could speak for a word for you, then his flatterers, he had instructed them, begged him to become king, and of course he did." "Do you mean he now wants to kill me too?" said Caspian. "That is almost certain," said the Dr. Cornelius. "But why now?" said Caspian. "I mean, why didn't he do it long ago if he wanted to? And what harm have I done him?" "He has changed his mind about you because of something that happened only 2 years ago. The Queen has had a son." I don't see what's got to do with... I don't see what that's got to do with it," said Caspian. "Don't see!" exclaimed the doctor. "Have all my lessons in history and politics taught you no more than that? Listen. As long as he has no children of his own, he was willing enough that he should be king after he died. He may not have cared much about you, but he would rather you should have the throne than a stranger. And now that he has a son of his own, he will want his own son to be the next king. You are in the way. He'll clear you out of the way." "Is it really all that bad?" "Is it really all that as bad as that?" said Caspian. "Would he really murder me?" "He murdered your father," said Dr. Cornelius. Caspian felt very queer and said nothing. "I can tell you the whole story," said the doctor, "but not now. There's no time. You must fly at once." "You'll come with me," said Caspian. "I dare not," said the doctor. "It would make your danger greater. 2 or more are easily tracked than 1, dear prince. Dear King Caspian, you must be very brave. You must go alone, and at once. Try to get across the southern border to the court of King Nain of Arkland. He will be good to you." shall I never see you again? Said Caspian in a quivering voice. Oh, I do hope so, dear king, said the doctor. What friend have I in the wide world except your majesty? I have a little magic, but in the meantime speed is everything. Here are 2 gifts before you go. This is a little purse of gold. Alas, all the treasure in this castle should be your own by right. And here is something far better. He put in Caspian's hand something which he could hardly see, but which he knew by the feel to be a horn. That, said Dr. Cornelius, is the greatest and most sacred treasure of Narnia. Many terrors I have endured, many spells did I utter to find it when I was still young. It is the magic horn of Queen Susan herself, which she left behind when she vanished from Narnia at the end of the Golden Age. It is said that whoever blows it shall have strange help. No one can say how strange. It may have the power to call Queen Susan, Queen Lucy, Queen Edmund, and Kai King Peter back from the past. And they will set all to rights. It may be that it will call upon Aslan himself. Take it, King Caspian, but do not use it except at your greatest need. And now haste, haste, haste. The little door at the very bottom of the tower, the door into the garden is unlocked. There we must part. Can I get my horse, Destrier? Said Caspian. He is already saddled and waiting for you just at the corner of the orchard. During the long climb down the winding staircase, Cornelius whispered many more words of direction and advice. Caspian's heart was sinking, but he tried to take it all in. Then came the fresh air in the garden, a fervent hand-clasp with the doctor, a run across the lawn, a welcome whinny from the destrier, and to King Caspian the 10th left the castle of his fathers. Looking back, he saw fireworks going up to celebrate the birth of the new prince. All night he rode southward, choosing by ways and bridle paths through woods as long as he was in country that he knew. But afterward he kept to the high road. Destrier was as excited as his master at this unusual journey, and Caspian, though tears had come to his eyes at saying goodbye to Dr. Cornelius, felt brave and, in a way, happy to think that he was King Caspian riding to seek adventures, with his sword on his hip and Queen Susan's magic horn on his right. But when day came with a sprinkle of rain, he looked about him and saw on every side unknown woods, wild heaths, and blue mountains. He thought how large and strange the world was, and felt frightened and small. As soon as it was full daylight, he left the road and found an open, grassy place amid a wood where he could rest. He took off Destrier's bridle and let him graze, ate some cold chicken and drank a little wine, and presently fell asleep. It was late afternoon when he woke. He ate a morsel and continued his journey, still southward by many unfrequented lanes. He was now in a land of hills going up and down, but always more up than down. From every ridge he could see the mountains growing bigger and blacker ahead, and the evening closed in. He was riding their lower slopes. The wind rose, and soon rain fell in torrents. Destrier became uneasy. There was thunder in the air, and now they entered a dark and seemingly endless pine forest. In all the stories Caspian had ever heard of trees being unfriendly to man crowded into his mind. He remembered that he was, after all, a Telmarine, one of the race who cut down trees wherever they could, and were at war with all wild things. And though he himself might be unlike other Telmarines, the trees could not be expected to know this. Nor did they. The wind became a tempest. The woods roared and creaked all round him. There came a crash. A tree fell right across the road just behind him. "Quiet, Destrier, quiet," said Caspian, patting his horse's neck. But he was trembling himself and knew that he had escaped death by an inch. Lightning flashed, and a great crack of thunder seemed to break the sky, and two just overhead. Destrier bolted in good earnest. Caspian was a good rider, but he had not the strength to hold him back. He kept his seat, but he knew that his life hung by a thread during the wild career that followed. Tree after tree rose up before them in the dusk, and was only just avoided. Then, almost too suddenly, to hurt, and yet it did hurt him too. Something struck Caspian on the forehead, and he knew no more. When he came to himself, he was lying in a firelit place with bruised limbs and a bad headache. Low voices were speaking close at hand. "And now," said one, "before it wakes up, we must decide what to do with it." "Kill it," said another. "We can't let it live. It would betray us." "We ought to have killed it at once, or else let it alone," said a third voice. "We can't kill it now. Not after we've taken it and bandaged its head and all. It would be murdering a guest." "Gentlemen," said Caspian in a feeble voice, "whatever you do to me, I hope you will be kind to my poor horse." "Your horse had taken flight long before we found you," said the first voice, a curiously husky, earthy voice, as Caspian now noticed. "Now, don't let it talk to you round with its pretty words," said the second voice. "I still say, horns and halibuts," exclaimed the third voice. "Of course we're not going to murder it. For shame, Nickabrick. What do you say, Truffle Hunter? What shall we do with it?" "I shall give it a drink," said the first voice, presumably Truffle Hunter's. A dark shape approached the bed. Caspian felt an arm slipped gently under his shoulders, if it was exactly an arm. The shape somehow seemed wrong. The face that bent towards him seemed wrong too. He'd got the impression that it was very hairy and very long nose, and there were odd white patches on each side of it. "It's a mask of some sort," thought Caspian, "or perhaps I'm in a fever and imagining it all." A cup full of something sweet and hot was set to his lips, and he drank. At that moment, one of the others poked the fire. A blaze sprang up, and Caspian almost screamed with shock as the sudden light revealed the face that was looking into his own. It was not a man's face, but a badger's, though larger and friendlier, and more intelligent than the face of any badger he'd seen before, and it had certainly been talking. He saw, too, that he was on a bed of heather. In a cave by the fire sat two little bearded men, so much wilder and shorter and hairier and thicker than Dr. Cornelius that he knew them at once for real dwarves, ancient dwarves with not a drop of human blood in their veins. And Caspian knew that he had found the old Narnians at last. Then his head began to swim again. In the next few days, he learned to know them by names. The badger was called Truffle Hunter. He was the oldest and kindest of the three. The dwarf who had wanted to kill Caspian was a sour black dwarf. That is, his hair and beard were black and thick and hard like horsehair. His name was Nickabrick. The other dwarf was a red dwarf with hair rather like a fox's, and he was called Trumpkin. "And now," said Nickabrick on the first evening when Caspian was well enough to sit up and talk, "we still have to decide what to do with this human. You two think you've done it a great kindness by letting me kill it and not letting me kill it. But I suppose the upshot is that we have to keep it a prisoner for life. I'm certainly not going to let it go alive, to go back to its own kind and betray us all." "Oh, bulbs and bolsters, Nickabrick," said Trumpkin. Why need you talk so unhandsomely? It isn't the creature's fault that it bashed its head against a tree outside our hole, and I don't think it looks like a traitor." "I say," said Caspian, "you haven't yet found out whether I want to go back. I don't. I want to stay with you if you'd let me. I've been looking for people like you all my life."
"That's a likely story," growled Nickabrick. "You're a Telmarine and a human, aren't you? Of course you want to go back to your own kind."
"Well, even if I did, I couldn't," said Caspian. "I was flying for my life when I had my accident. The king wants to kill me. If you'd kill me, you'd have done the very thing to please him." "Well now," said Truffle Hunter, "you don't say."
"Eh?" said Trumpkin. "What's that? What have you been doing, human, to fall foul of Miraz at your age?"
"He's my uncle," began Caspian, when Nickabrick jumped up with his hand on his dagger.
"There you are," he cried. "Not only a Telmarine, but close kin and heir to our greatest enemy. Are you still mad enough to let this creature live?"
He would have stabbed Caspian then and there if the badger and Trumpkin had not got in the way and forced him back to his seat and held him down.
"Now, Once and for all, Knickerbrick, said Trumpkin, will you contain yourself, or must Truffle Hunter and I sit on your head?
Knickerbrick sulkily promised to behave, and the other two asked Caspian to tell him the whole story. When he had done so, there was a moment's silence.
Now, this is the queerest thing I think I've ever heard, said Trumpkin. I don't like it, said Knickerbrick. I didn't know there were stories about us still told among the humans. The less they know about us, the better. That old nurse now, she's better held her tongue. And it's all mixed up with that tutor, a renegade dwarf. Oh, I hate him. I hate him worse than the humans. You mark my words, no good will come of it. Now, don't you go talking about those things you don't understand, Knickerbrick, said Truffle Hunter. You dwarfs are as forgetful and changeable as the humans themselves. I'm a beast, I am, and a badger, what's more. We don't change. We hold on, and I say great good will come of it. This is the true king of Narnia we've got here. A true king, coming back to true Narnia. And we beasts remember, even if dwarfs forget, that Narnia was never right, except when a son of Adam was king. Oh, whistles and whirligigs, Truffle Hunter, said Trumpkin. You don't mean you want to give the country to humans? I said nothing about that, answered the badger. It's not men's country. Who should know that better than me? It's a country for a man to be king of. We badgers have long enough memories to know that. Why, bless us all, wasn't the High King Peter a man? Oh, well, do you believe all those old stories? Asked Trumpkin. I tell you, we don't change, we beasts, said Truffle Hunter. We don't forget. I believe in the High King Peter and the rest that reigned at Cair Paravel as family as I believe in Aslan himself. As firmly as that, I dare say, said Trumpkin. But who believes in Aslan nowadays? I do, said Caspian. And if I hadn't believed in him before, I would now. Back there among the humans, the people who laughed at Aslan would have laughed at stories about talking beasts and dwarfs. Sometimes I did wonder if there really was such as Aslan. But then something I wondered if there really were people like you. Yet here you are. That's right, said Truffle Hunter. You're right, King Caspian, and as long as you will be true to old Narnia, you shall be my king, whatever they say. Long life to your majesty. Oh, you make me sick, Badger, growled Knickerbrick. The High King Peter and the rest may have been men, but they were a different sort of men. This is one of the cursed Telmarines. He's hunted beasts for sport, haven't you now? He added, rounding suddenly on Caspian. Well, to tell you the truth, I have, said Caspian, but they weren't talking beasts. It's all the same thing, said Knickerbrick. No, said Truffle Hunter. You know it isn't. You know very well that the beasts in Narnia nowadays are different, and are no more than the poor, dumb, witless creatures you found in Calormen or Telmar. They're smaller, too. They're far more different from us than the half-dwarfs are from you. There was a great deal more talk, but it all ended with the agreement that Caspian should stay, and even the promise that as soon as he was able to go out, he should be taken to see what Trumpkin called the others. For apparently in these wild parts, all sorts of creatures from the old days of Narnia still lived on in hiding. There. And that's the end of chapter 5. I remember hating Knickerbrick so much when I was a kid. Well, I hate him now. So it's well-founded. You know what I mean? Well-founded indeed. Yeah, Knickerbrick's not nice, that's for sure. All right, I think we'll read one more chapter. That'll be chapter 6 and put us about halfway through the book. It'll put us about halfway through the book. And then I can go tend to my family. That's what I shall do. I gotta go, Rico. Have a blessed stream. Rest of your day. God bless you. All right, kitty. Never mind. I have more time than I thought. Okay. Well, so long and welcome back. But it's good to see you, Remnant. Thank you for the resub, my dear and glorious brother. I'm honored. I hope 22 months I have been your servant, my dear friend. I hope you've enjoyed your time hanging out in the chat, and I do appreciate any and all subs, my lords and ladies. It blesses me so.
It makes me feel like you guys you enjoy our fellowship, and know that I do too. Even if you don't sub or do anything like that, I do appreciate you. Feels like I'm doing a good job. Please, can you read until 4 p.m. EST? This is getting me through work right now, bro. I wish I could, Caffeinated Squirrel. I'm sorry. Maybe sometime in the future I can do that. But just so you know, we will be back this evening after we're done reading. We're going to be playing Gartic Phone. So for those of you on YouTube as well, we won't be...
Can I play too? You too?
No, you guys have to go to bed at that time. It's after your bedtime. Anyway, let's read chapter 6, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. All right, so chapter 6. Here we go. Chapter 6. The people that lived in hiding. Now began the happiest times that Caspian had ever known. On a fine summer morning, when the dew lay on the grass, he set off with the badger and the two dwarfs, up through the forest to a high saddle in the mountains, and down onto their sunny southern slopes, where one looked across the green wolds of Arkenland. We will go first to the three bulgy bears, said Trumpkin. They came in a glade to an old hollow oak tree covered with moss, and Truffle Hunter tapped with his paw 3 times on the trunk, and there was no answer. Then he tapped again, and a woolly sort of voice from inside said, "Go away, it's not time to get up yet." But when he tapped the 3rd time, there was a noise like a small earthquake from inside, and a sort of door opened, and out came 3 brown bears, very bulgy indeed, and blinking their little eyes. And when everything had been explained to them, which took a long time because they were so sleepy, they said, just as Truffle Hunter had said, that a son of Adam ought to be king of Narnia, and all kissed Caspian, very wet, snuffly kisses they were, and offered him some honey. Caspian did not really want honey without bread at that time in the morning, but he thought it polite to accept. It took him a long time afterwards to get unsticky. After that they went on till they came among tall beech trees, and Truffle Hunter called out, "Patterwig! Patterwig! Pattertwig!" And almost at once, bounding down from branch to branch till it was just above their heads, came the most magnificent red squirrel that Caspian had ever seen. He was far bigger than the ordinary dumb squirrels which he had sometimes seen in the castle gardens. Indeed, he was nearly the size of a terrier, and the moment you looked in his face you saw that he could talk. Indeed, the difficulty was to get him to stop talking, for like all squirrels, he was a chatterer. He welcomed Caspian at once, and asked if he would like a nut, and Caspian said thanks he would. But as Pattertwig went bounding away to fetch it, Truffle Hunter whispered in Caspian's ear, "Don't look. Look the other way. It's very bad manners among squirrels to watch anyone going to his store, or to look at it if you wanted to know where it was." Then Pattertwig came back with the nut, and Caspian ate it. And after that, Pattertwig asked if he could take any messages to other friends. "For I can go nearly everywhere without setting foot to the ground," he said. Truffle Hunter and the dwarfs thought this a very good idea, and gave Pattertwig messages to all sorts of people with queer names, telling them all to come to a feast and to council on Dancing Lawn at midnight 3 nights ahead. "Oh, and you'd better tell the 3 bulgies too," added Trumpkin. "We forgot to mention it to them." Their next visit was to the 7 brothers of Shuddering Wood. Trumpkin led the way back to Saddle, and then down eastward to the northern slope of the mountains, till they came to a very solemn place among rocks and fir trees. They went very quietly, and presently Caspian could feel the ground shaking under his feet, as if someone were hammering down below. Trumpkin went to a flat stone about the size of the top of a water butte, and stamped on it with his foot. After a long pause, it was moved away by someone or something underneath, and there was a dark, round hole with a good deal of heat and steam coming out of it, and in the middle of the hole, the head of a dwarf, very like Trumpkin himself. There was a long talk here, and the dwarf seemed more suspicious than the squirrel or the bulgy bears had been, but in the end, the whole party were invited to come down. Oh, I forgot to pause the ads. Sorry, guys. My plans are more Space Marine 2 with the wife. Glorious, old man dad. Sounds glorious to me. I love me some garlic phone. Yeah, caffeinated squirrel. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time. Oh. Huh? We'll see what I can do. I haven't drawn many horses, so. Huh? I see. Good stretch. Ooh. All right, we got about 30 seconds left on the ad, and then we will continue. I just want to say thanks for y'all being here. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. I'm having a marvelous time. I love to watch garlic foam, but I'm only on YouTube. I'll try to stream it to YouTube too, Crafty Kitty. I don't think it will take up too much bandwidth. So, really the problem with streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time, and then I try and play a game. Like, my computer's a beast. I've been blessed with a very nice PC that we built. But if it's like a really, intense game graphically, then that's usually a problem. I think I'll be able to handle it. So I'll try and stream it to YouTube this evening too for you. If you guys are interested in seeing it, I'll get it posted, and then at least the VOD will be up there on YouTube for you. All right? I'll see if I can get that going for you this evening. Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to serve you. Back. Last I heard was, and the dwarf seemed. Okay, let's see. There was a long talk here, and the dwarf seemed more suspicious than the squirrel or the bulgy bears had been. But in the end, the whole party were invited to come down. Caspian found himself descending a dark stairway into the earth, but when he came to the bottom, he saw firelight. It was the light of a furnace. The whole place was a smithy. A subterranean stream ran past on one side of it. The two dwarves were at the bellows, another was holding a piece of red-hot metal on the anvil with a pair of tongs, a fourth was hammering it, and two, wiping their horny little hands on a greasy cloth, were coming forward to meet the visitors. It seemed some time to satisfy them that Caspian was a friend and not an enemy, but when they did, they all cried, "Long live the king!" and their gifts were noble. Mail shirts and helmets, and swords for Caspian, and Trumpkin and Nickabrick. The badger could have had the same if he had liked, but he said he was a beast. He was, and if his claws and teeth could not keep his skin whole, it wasn't worth keeping. The workmanship of the arms was far finer than any Caspian had ever seen, and he gladly accepted the dwarf-made sword instead of his own, which looked in comparison as feeble as a toy and as clumsy as a stick. The 7 brothers, who were all red dwarves, promised to come to the feast at Dancing Lawn. A little further on, in a dry, rocky ravine, they reached the cave of 5 black dwarves. They looked suspiciously at Caspian, but in the end the eldest of them said, "If he is against Miraz, we'll have him as king." And the next oldest, "Shall we go further up for you, up to the crags? There's an ogre or two and a hag that we could introduce you to, up there." Certainly not," said Caspian. "I should think that indeed not," said Truffle Hunter. "We want none of that sort on our side." Nickabrick disagreed with this, but Trumpkin and the badger overruled him. It gave Caspian a shock to realize that the horrible creatures out of the old stories, as well as the nice ones, had some descendants in Narnia still. "Well, we should not have Aslan for friend if we brought in that rabble," said Truffle Hunter, as they came away from the cave of the black dwarves. "Oh, Aslan," said Trumpkin cheerily but contemptuously. "What matters much more is that you wouldn't have me." "Do you not believe in Aslan?" Oh, sorry, that was Caspian. "Do you not believe in Aslan?" said Caspian to Nickabrick. "I'll believe in anyone or anything," said Nickabrick. That'll batter these cursed Telmarines, barbarians, to pieces, or drive them out of Narnia. Anything or anyone, Aslan or the White Witch. Do you understand?" "Silence, silence," said Truffle Hunter. "You do know what you are saying. She was a worse enemy than Miraz and all his race." "Not to dwarfs she wasn't," said Nickabrick. Their next visit was a pleasanter one. As they came down lower, the mountains opened out into a great glen or wooded gorge with a swift river running at the bottom. The open places nearer the river's edge were a mass of foxgloves and wild roses, and the air was buzzing with bees. Here Truffle Hunter called again. "Glenstorm! Glenstorm!" And after a pause, Caspian heard the sound of hoofs. It grew louder till the valley trembled, and at last, breaking and trampling the thickets, there came in sight the noblest creature that Caspian had yet seen. The great centaur Glenstorm and his 3 sons. His flanks were glossy chestnut, and the beard that covered his broad chest was golden red. He was a prophet and a stargazer, and knew that they had come about. "Long live the king!" he cried. "I and my sons are ready for war. When is the battle to be joined?" Up till now, neither Caspian nor the others had really been thinking of a war. They had some vague idea, perhaps, of an occasional raid on some human farmstead or of attacking a party of hunters if it ventured too far into these southern wilds. But in the main, they had thought only of living to themselves in woods and caves and building up an attempt at old Narnia in hiding. As soon as Glenstorm had spoken, everyone felt much more serious. "Do you mean a real war to drive Miraz out of Narnia?" asked Caspian. "What else?" said the centaur. "Why else does your majesty go clad in mail and girt with sword?" "Is it possible, Glenstorm?" said the badger. "The time is ripe," said Glenstorm. "I watch the skies, badger, for it is mine to watch as it is yours to remember. Tarva and Alambil have met in the halls of high heaven, and on earth a son of Adam has once more arisen to rule and name the creatures. The hour has struck. Our council at the dancing lawn must be a council of war." He spoke in such a voice that neither Caspian nor the others hesitated for a moment. It now seemed to them quite possible that they might win a war, and quite certain that they must wage one. As it was now past the middle of the day, they rested with the centaurs and ate such food as the centaurs provided, cakes of oaten meal, and apples and herbs and wine and cheese. The next place they were to visit was quite near at hand, but they had to go a long way round in order to avoid a region in which men lived. It was well into the afternoon before they found themselves in level fields, warm between hedgerows. There Truffle Hunter called at the mouth of a little hole in a green bank, and out popped the last thing Caspian expected, a talking mouse. He was, of course, bigger than a common mouse, well over a foot high when he stood on his hind legs, and with his ears nearly as long, as though broader than a rabbit's. His name was Reepicheep, and he was a gay and martial mouse. He wore a tiny little rapier at his side, and twirled his long whiskers as if they were a moustache. "There are 12 of us, sire," he said with a dashing and graceful bow, "and I place all the resources of my people unreservedly at your majesty's disposal." Caspian tried hard, and successfully, not to laugh. But he couldn't help thinking that Reepicheep and all his people could very easily be put in a washing basket and carried home on one's back. It would take too long to mention all the creatures whom Caspian met that day. Clodsley Shovel the Mole, the 3 hard-biters who were badgers like Truffle Hunter, Camillo the Hare, and Hogglestock the Hedgehog. They rested at last beside a well at the edge of a wide and level circle of grass, bordered with tall elms which now threw long shadows across it. For the sun was setting, the daisies closing, and the rooks flying home to bed. Here they supped on food they had brought with them, and Trumpkin lit his pipe. Nickabrick was not a smoker. "Now," said the badger, "if only we could wake the spirits of these trees and this well, we should have done a good day's work." "Can't we?" said Caspian. "Oh, no," said Truffle Hunter. "We have no power over them. Since the humans came into the land, felling forests and trees and defiling streams, the dryads and naiads have sunk into a deep sleep. Who knows if ever we'll stir again?
and that is a great loss to our side. The Telmarines are horribly afraid of trees and woods, and once the trees moved in anger, our enemies would go mad, fright, and be chased out of Narnia as quick as their legs could carry them. With imaginations, you have animals. I'll tell you that, said Trumpkin, who didn't believe in such things. But why stop at trees and waters? Why, wouldn't it be even nicer if stones started throwing themselves at old Miraz? The badger only grunted at this, and after that there was such a silence that Caspian had nearly dropped off to sleep when he thought he heard a faint, musical sound from the depth of the woods at his back. Then he thought it was only a dream and turned over again. But as soon as his ear touched the ground, he felt or heard, it was hard to tell which, a faint beating or drumming. He raised his head. The beating noise at once became fainter, but the music returned, clearer this time. It was like flutes. He saw that Truffle Hunter was sitting up staring into the wood. The moon was bright. Caspian had been asleep longer than he thought. And nearer came the music, a tune wild and yet dreamy, and the noise of many light feet, till at last, out from the woods into the moonlight, came dancing shapes such as Caspian had been thinking of all his life. They were not much taller than dwarfs, but far slighter and more graceful. Their curly heads had little horns. The upper part of their bodies gleamed naked in the pale light, but their legs and feet were those of goats. "Fawns!" cried Caspian, jumping up, and in a moment they were all round him. It took next to no time to explain the whole situation to them, and they accepted Caspian at once. Before he knew what he was doing, he found himself joining in the dance. Trumpkin, with heavier and jerkier movements, did likewise, and even Truffle Hunter hopped and lumbered about as best he could. Only Knickerbrick stayed where he was, looking on in silence. The fawns footed it all round Caspian to their reedy pipes. Their strange faces, which seemed mournful and merry all at once, looked into his. Dozens of fawns, Mencius and Obenitus, and Dumnus and Volans, Voltinus, Gerbius, Nimianus, Nauseus, and Oskins. Patratwig had sent them all. When Caspian awoke next morning, he could hardly believe that it had all not been a dream, but the grass was covered with little cloven hoof marks. And that is the end of chapter 6. So next time we read, it's a little over halfway through the book. We're about there. It's another chapter or two. Yes, it's Reepicheep! Reepicheep has arrived in the scene. He's one of my favorite characters. Yeah. The rest of the book? You'll see. You'll see. Yeah, everybody, we all love Reepicheep. We loved him as a kid, yeah. You know, they did a really good job, I thought, portraying him in the movie. I thought they did a pretty good job. But that is where we're going to leave it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. We read 6 chapters of Prince Caspian. We're almost halfway through the book. So I expect I'll have this schedule out for next week, posted this weekend on the Discord. So you guys are welcome to join in that, and you can see there. There you are. If you guys over on Discord or on YouTube would like to join the Discord, you are welcome to do so. Here you go. There's the link for that, but no pressure. You don't have to. Of course, we'll be streaming on both YouTube and Twitch for that. So if you guys want to tune in, we'll be doing that probably around the same time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed the reading of Prince Caspian. And we'll keep going. I'm looking forward to reading more of it. That's a great story. Now, that being said, we will be back this evening. Tonight around 8:30 EST. Okay, that's 20:30 for you military types like myself. We're going to be playing Gardic Phone. We're going to play with a whole gaggle of glorious brothers and sisters. It's going to be a really good time. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will try to stream it to both platforms again for you over there, Crafty Kitty, and anybody else watching. So if you guys want to see that, you're more than welcome to do so. And I am honored to see you there. So we'll say goodbye. Goodbye, YouTube. Say goodbye, everybody on YouTube. Goodbye. God bless you, Rico. I hope I can catch you tonight. Yes, Crafty. I hope to see you there. Goodbye. We'll see you guys later.